I have a dream that one day my four little children will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the context of their character. This is a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. in his I Have a Dream speech on Washington, D.C. Martin Luther King Jr.'s impact on society in a time of ruthless hatred and racism, in his philosophy and ideals of nonviolence that he adapted from Gandhi hundreds of years earlier in India, led a social movement in our nation and brought forth a great justice to this country's war with inequality. Martin Luther King Jr. is, or was, and is to this day the face of equal rights. Martin Luther King is a name that you've all heard before and will forever hear in our history. His values and the way that he envisioned his dreams and spoke so fluently in his speeches gave the people hope in this country. Without violence, Dr. King showed America how much one man can impact an entire culture and civilization, and the way that we look at one another through the eyes of inequality. Martin Luther King has had early battles with racism. Prior to his I Have a Dream speech, Martin Luther King Jr. played an active role in the NAACP. After the Rosa Parks arrest, where she sat in the white-only seat on the bus and was asked to move and refused, he was claimed to lead the bus boycott due to his intelligence and his lack of enemies. He was given this role by the president of the NAACP. King was imprisoned due to a sit-in protest at a convenience store where he refused to leave when asked because of his skin color. Days after, John Kennedy, the President of the United States at that time, later acknowledged King's harsh treatment and he was set free. Once again, King was put in jail for his nonviolent protests in Birmingham, Alabama, where police used fire hoses and dogs on innocent victims and even children. Now that we see his early struggles and his arrest with racist and Southern law, next we'll see how he opened the eyes of America and enforced change in the South and throughout our entire country. Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech impacted America in many ways. On August 28, 1963, King stood before 200,000 people, and they marched on the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. to hear King talk. The speech is one of the greatest ever composed, up there with Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. The speech brought nationwide attention to mistreatment of African Americans in the South and the Jim Crow laws that repressed them. Jim Crow laws were laws in the southern states that separated black and whites in all aspects of life. The laws created a system that favored the whites and repressed the black population. A black man may not be able to sit in a diner that the whites had, or they would have separate drinking fountains, separate schools, separate bathrooms. They were just treated like second-class citizens. Many people started questioning these laws 1 year later after King brought them up, and the Civil Rights Act was passed, which desegregated the general public and made it into one which caused uproar in Southern society in 1964. King then led on many more social movements, but on April 4th, 1968, King was assassinated by a man named James Earl Ray. We will look at the legacy Dr. King left behind. After his assassination, riots in more than 100 cities broke out in the United States. Dr. King Jr. is to this day the most widely named of our era on the topic of racial inequality in this country. He is widely recognized for his nonviolent protests in his way that he never, ever broke. Bend but do not break, he always preached. His efforts and actions have proved to be all worthwhile, ending segregation and eventually leading to the Equal Rights Act that we see today. Martin Luther King struggled with racism his entire life, starting with his early adult life. His words and his goals for this country and the hardships that he had to endure will never be forgotten, but he brought to our eyes as people the value of equality. Dr. King is the face of that equality, and for that, he is historic and will forever be historic. Even after his death, His actions have affected our time and our population as his voice continues to grow and grow today. Obviously, we have a black president now, so we can see that his movements were all worth the while, and that King will forever be a leader of this country.